mean, isn't it so interesting what these little rules come to mean? I mean, they truly set the organization of the family. And so you've got some parents that are helicopter parents. I just did this with new student enrollment. Helicopter parents. You've got some people that are more like spaceship parents, and they're like hands off. You're an adult now. You're 13. You figure it out yourself. You know. And then you've also got parents that are somewhere in the middle, or that can move back and forth. When there needs to be hovering, they can hover. When there needs to be hands off, they can do that. But what is exactly right? How do you know? I tell you how you know, you guys. They come into therapy because something's not working, something's not right. Otherwise, I think it's working all right. You know? So they'll be able to tell you, this isn't working, something's not working. And so you'll be looking at their rules, their roles, the structure, and whether there's too much or not enough, whether they're too close or too distant, whether they're over-involved with each other or disconnected and uninvolved. And you'll be able to, and so I'm going to teach you, we're going to talk about some of the best techniques you will ever hear about in your life these next two sessions. I love these techniques because you are going to be able to help these families change, and you know what? They're not even going to know what happened to them. This is not insight oriented. We don't really care if they know it or not. We just want them to change. We just know that the organization, structure, and the process is not working. We don't need them to leave with a lot of insight, or any, for that matter. But it's very fun. Okay, so clear boundaries, clear rules, that's the goal. And, so families fall on a continuum between rigid and diffuse. Rigid boundaries. People are separated from each other. They are disengaged within and between subsystems. So like marital, the marriage may be very disengaged, and they may also be disengaged with the siblings, or they might be disengaged with parental units or siblings. Family members are isolated from one another and from systems in the community. Isn't that sad? I mean, can you hear the lack of access to support, belonging, caring, resources? Doggone it. So, families that have rigid rules, which means they've usually got a lot of rules and they're usually very, very enforced, and they usually don't change very often. They're pretty stable, but they might need to adapt. Okay? So, for example, a pretty rigid family that you've heard me talk about already is the mom with the daughter who was 12 with epilepsy. When that child had an epilepsy seizure, a grand mal seizure at the age of 2, mom set in motion a lot of rules to protect that girl. Right? Makes sense? She was using the same rules when she was 12. And what were the symptoms? What were the daughter's symptoms? Do you remember me telling you these? She hid 40
the pills. Yeah,
pills under her pillow. Is that not symbolic? Okay. She also stole a dollar bill off the kitchen table. Do you remember me telling you that? She stole some makeup from her mom. Maybe I didn't tell you all that. So the mom, the first day she calls me, she's saying, she stole $1 and she stole my makeup. Should I call the police? No, I don't think you should call the police. Let's hold off on that. That's a thought.
That's one way to handle it. What are some others?
But what did that tell me? What did that reaction of that mom tell me in that moment?
Overdoes everything.
Rigid. Overdoing it. Over. Yes. So, the daughter also had glasses, And Mom said that she would never take the glasses to school, so Mom would always show up at school with the glasses. Is that hysterical? These symptoms are fantastic. Tell you what, they're entertaining for one. For another, they do help you understand the nature of the relationship between mother and daughter and the structure about what's going on. So, my sense was, Mom had figured out how to keep her child safe, went with that, and the daughter's growing up. The daughter hits 12, which is really pre-adolescence, into adolescence, and the daughter's behavior signals back to the system what?
Too much.
Fluctuations and variations need to occur. Feedback into the system. I am not 2 anymore. Please don't shove that pill down my throat. Right? But, are you going to just say to Mom, oh, well, why don't you just back off? You're just really over-functioning and you've got some rigid rules here. Can you just loosen it up and your daughter will be fine? You want to tell her that? I don't want to tell her that. Especially if she did that and the daughter did die from a grand mal seizure. Right? Yeah. Imagine saying to the mom, yeah, back off on that pill. Don't worry about that so much.
Yeah, you're gonna liable.
Yeah. So you're going to have to figure out how to intervene in this without siding with the mom or siding with the daughter. Right? You're going to have to be neutral, and yet you're going to have to change this up. So, rigid stuff. So, family members are isolated from one another, form systems and from systems in the community. Access between subsystems is restricted. You might have rules like parents are parents and children are children. There's no room for negotiation and accommodation. Children should be seen and not heard. Heard that one? Okay? These things are easy to say but have complex ripple effects on the system if something like that is in force. In the extreme, only the intense crisis or extreme stress can mobilize support. Isn't that interesting? So think of the families that you know that have crisis after crisis. It is very possible that one of the reasons the crisis, the symptom, the crisis, serves the family is to actually mobilize support and closeness and talking and being there for one another. Because without that, they're aloof and distant. So when you see those families that have one crisis after another, there may be some very rigid stuff going on there that you can intervene and help them with so that they can get their needs met without having to have a problem, without having to have a crisis. So, we might hear in these families, handle the problem yourself, don't bother me, I have my own burden to bear. Family members so involved with their own problems that they are slow to notice or respond when others need help.